The United States has many different ways for people from other countries to live and work here legally. One of the most exclusive paths is the EB-1 visa, a type of green card reserved for individuals with extraordinary ability. This isn't just for people who are good at their jobs, it's for those who are at the very top of their field. The government looks for major internationally recognized awards like a Nobel Prize or an Oscar. Think of it as the Einstein visa, a nickname it earned because it's meant for people who are truly exceptional and have proven it on a global stage. The idea is to attract the best and brightest minds from around the world to contribute their unique talents to the United States. Of course, not everyone who qualifies for an EB-1 visa has a Nobel Prize sitting on their shelf. Because such awards are incredibly rare, there are other ways to prove extraordinary ability. A person can also qualify by meeting at least 3 out of 10 specific criteria. These include things like having articles written about you in major publications, proof of a very high salary compared to others in your field, or evidence that you have played a critical or leading role for distinguished organizations. It's a high bar to clear. The person applying must provide a mountain of evidence to show they are not just successful, but a true standout whose work has been recognized far and wide. The process is rigorous and requires extensive documentation. Applicants must submit a detailed petition that showcases their achievements. This might include newspaper clippings, letters from experts in their field, copies of awards, and financial records. Immigration officials then carefully review this evidence to determine if the person truly meets the high standards of the EB-1 category. It is designed to be one of the most difficult employment-based visas to obtain. The government wants to be sure that the people getting these green cards are genuinely at the pinnacle of their profession, whether it's in the sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. Ultimately, the goal of the EB-1 visa is to benefit the United States by bringing in people with remarkable skills. These are individuals who are expected to continue their great work once they are in the country. The visa allows them to get a green card, which means they can live and work in the U.S. permanently. It's a direct path to residency for a very small, very select group of people who have demonstrated a level of achievement that most people can only dream of. The requirements are strict because the privilege is significant, offering a fast track for those who have already proven their extraordinary value on an international level. Before she was the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump was a model from Slovenia, named Melania Novs. She began her modeling career in Europe and came to the United States in 1996 to pursue more opportunities. Like many aspiring models from other countries, she worked in the US on a series of temporary work visas. These visas allowed her to legally take on modeling jobs for a specific period. Her journey was typical for many international professionals trying to build a career in America. She worked on fashion shoots and appeared in magazines, slowly building her portfolio and reputation within the competitive fashion industry. The turning point in her immigration story came in 2001. That was the year she successfully obtained an EB-1 visa. Her lawyer argued that her modeling career constituted extraordinary ability. This was a significant step as it put her on the path to permanent residency. To get this visa, she had to prove that she was one of the top models in her field. This likely involved submitting evidence of her work, such as magazine covers, runway appearances, and letters from industry experts testifying to her high standing. The approval of her petition meant that U.S. immigration officials agreed that she met the demanding criteria for this elite visa category. Receiving the EB-1 green card was a crucial moment for her. It meant she was no longer dependent on temporary work visas that needed to be renewed. With permanent residency, she could live and work freely in the United States without the constant worry of her legal status expiring. This stability is a key reason why so many immigrants seek a green card. For Melania Trump, it was the final major hurdle in her immigration process before she could apply for citizenship. In 2005, she married Donald Trump, and just 1 year later, in 2006, she became a naturalized U.S. citizen, completing her long journey from a small town in Slovenia to the highest circles of American society. Her case is interesting because modeling is not a field typically associated with the Einstein visa. While top supermodels can certainly achieve international fame and earn very high salaries, the argument for extraordinary ability can be more subjective than it is for a scientist with a Nobel Prize. Her successful application shows that the EB1 category is open to a wide range of professions, as long as the applicant can provide compelling evidence of being at the absolute top of their game. Her journey from a work visa to a green card and finally to citizenship is a path that many immigrants hope to follow, though very few qualify for the specific elite visa she used. During his time as a political candidate and as president, Donald Trump made immigration a central issue of his platform. He was known for his very tough stance on both legal and illegal immigration. One of his most famous campaign promises was to build a wall on the US-Mexico border to stop people from crossing into the country without permission. This Build the Wall promise became a rallying cry for his supporters and signaled a hardline approach to border security. He often spoke about the need to control who comes into the country, framing it as a matter of national security and economic protection for American workers. President Trump's policies went beyond just border security. His administration took steps to make the legal immigration system more difficult to navigate. He often criticized what he called chain migration, which is the process where a U.S. citizen or permanent resident can sponsor their relatives to come to the U.S. He argued that this system allowed too many people into the country based on family ties rather than on their skills or merit. His administration proposed changes that would prioritize immigrants with specific job skills and higher education, shifting away from the family-based system that has been a cornerstone of U.S. immigration law for decades. One of the most controversial aspects of his presidency was the increased focus on deportations. His administration expanded the categories of undocumented immigrants who were considered priorities for removal. Under previous administrations, the focus was often on deporting immigrants who had committed serious crimes. However, the Trump administration took a much broader approach, targeting anyone in the country without legal status, regardless of whether they had a criminal record. This led to a climate of fear in many immigrant communities, as people who had lived in the U.S. for years without any legal trouble suddenly faced the risk of being deported. This tough stance created a clear policy direction. America should be much more selective about who it lets in, and much more aggressive about who it sends out. The rhetoric was often about putting America first and ensuring that immigration benefits the nation. This meant stricter enforcement at the border, a more complicated and demanding legal immigration process, and an increase in deportations for those without legal permission to be here. The policies aimed to reduce the overall number of immigrants entering the country, and to send a strong message that the old rules were changing, with a new era of strict enforcement taking their place. When you place Melania Trump's personal immigration story next to her husband's public policies, some people see a potential contradiction. The question of a double standard arises because the very system that allowed her to become a citizen is one that her husband later criticized and sought to change. She benefited from a process that allowed her to come to the U.S. to work and eventually gain permanent residency. Critics point out that the Trump administration's policies aimed to make such paths more difficult for others, creating a situation where the rules that benefited his own family would not be as accessible to future immigrants. The argument for a double standard is fairly straightforward. Melania Trump used a visa for people with extraordinary ability, a category some questioned if she truly met. Later, her husband's administration increased scrutiny on all visa applications, making it harder for everyone. He also spoke out against chain migration, yet Melania Trump was able to sponsor her parents for their own U.S. citizenship. To critics, this looks like a classic case of rules for thee, but not for me. They argue that the Trump family took full advantage of the existing immigration system while simultaneously working to dismantle it for others. On the other hand, there are arguments against the idea of a double standard. Supporters might say that Melania Trump followed the law completely. She applied for the EB1 visa, and immigration officials, who are professionals in this field, approved her application based on the evidence she provided. According to this view, she played by the rules that were in place at the time. The fact that her husband later wanted to change those rules doesn't make her own legal immigration journey hypocritical. Presidents often seek to reform laws they believe are flawed. and that doesn't mean their families were wrong to follow those laws in the past. In summary, the debate boils down to a simple disagreement. Is it a double standard for a political leader to benefit from a system he later tries to restrict for others? Or is it simply a case of someone following the law as it exists, even while believing that the law itself needs to be reformed for the future? Melania Trump's EB-1 visa was her legal path to becoming an American, a path that highlights the complexities and personal stories behind the loud political debates. Her case serves as a powerful example of how immigration is not just a policy issue, but something that touches families in very direct and personal ways, even those in the White House.